What if I told you that all the wounds, all the heartbreak, all the moments that ripped you in two were not punishment but purification? Most people live their lives fleeing pain like it is an enemy, but the Stoics knew the opposite. Pain, they thought, was the fire that smelts the soul. It doesn't arrive to kill you. It arrives to remove the illusions that render you vulnerable. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That one reality accounts for all of adversity. The very thing you fight is what is going to make you powerful. When life crumbles, when plans fall apart, when people go, when the world ceases to make sense, those aren't acts of random cruelty. They're the universe's way of showing you who you are when it takes everything else away. Amidst the din of comfort, you can fake it. You can construct masks, recite lines, pursue validation. But when adversity arrives, all facade incinerates. And what is left is bare, genuine, irrefutable. That is when the soul starts to purify. Comfort blunts the bristles of the spirit. It reminds you that you are okay the way you are. It tells you in a whisper that you deserve comfort, that you never have to hurt. But life, actual life, doesn't operate that way. Every empire, every brilliant mind, every warrior who ever existed knew this principle. Comfort creates weakness. Adversity creates clarity. The Stoics prepared themselves for this reality. Seneca exercised intentional discomfort, sleeping on the ground, dressing in rough clothing, eating simple food, not because he liked to suffer, but because he did not want to be a slave to comfort. He understood that indulgence pacifies bravery. Only through embracing discomfort do you become liberated from fear. Because when you no longer fear pain, nothing anymore can possess control over you. Reflect on your own life. The times that defined you, truly defined you, weren't the ones that came easily. They were the sleepless nights, the questioning days, the times when you felt invisible and alone. Those are the crucibles in which strength was forged. Adversity doesn't ask permission. It comes in uninvited and compels you to adapt or break. The Stoics didn't fight that adaptation. They embraced it. They gazed on the wreckage and said, "Teach me." They knew that a peaceful sea never produces a good sailor. Only storms teach you to navigate. But here is the paradox everyone overlooks. Adversity doesn't just make you stronger, it cleans you. It wipes away ego pride, attachments to non-things, the constant desire to control. In the loss of what you once believed you required, you find that which you cannot lose, your true self. That is the reason Epictetus, born a slave and disabled by his owner, could still assert, "No man is free who is not master of himself." He wasn't referring to exterior shackles. He was referring to interior tumult. Hardship taught him that freedom isn't what happens to you. It is what you do in response. We live in a culture that shuns even the smallest inconvenience. A dead battery and their day is ruined. A delayed text and they question their worth. But the Stoic way of life is different. It says, welcome the inconvenience, embrace the discomfort, go in search of it. Because each moment of adversity is an opportunity to discipline the mind, to observe the distinction between what you may control and what you cannot, to master the skill of inner calm when all about you trembles. That is purification. Not by rituals, not by words, but through perseverance. Picture a sword in the forge. With each withdrawal from the heat and hammering, it grows sharper, stronger, more indomitable. Now think of your soul as that sword. All hardship is the hammer. All trial is the heat. You may curse the flame, or you may allow it to temper you. Most people shatter because they perceive hardship as punishment. The Stoic views it as purpose. The Stoic mutters, "Thank you," even to pain. Not because it feels pleasant, but because it feels real. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire of plague, war, and betrayal, and nevertheless wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That is the essence of the Stoic secret. You don't suffer due to things that happen. You suffer due to your expectation of how you think life is supposed to be. Let that expectation go, and adversity becomes strength. The same storm that buries the novice will purify the person who understands how to breathe underwater. So when life breaks apart, when you lose people, status, health, certainty, remember this: you are not being destroyed. You are being refined. The pain is the process of purification. It is the universe burning away the parts of you that were never real. The impatience, the entitlement, the illusion that you are in control. What is left after the fire is the essence, pure, steady, unshakable. The soul that can face anything without losing itself. That is why hardship is holy. It is not randomness. It is structure masquerading as loss. It is not brutality. It is precision in torment. And when you get that, your dynamic with struggle is altered forever. You cease wondering, "Why me?" and begin wondering, "What is this trying to teach me?" You cease fighting the storm and learn to walk through it peacefully. The Stoics did not pray for simple lives. They prayed for hardier souls. They did not pray for mercy. They prayed for mastery. And that is the distinction between those who fall apart and those who emerge. The former view adversity as punishment. The latter view adversity as cleansing. Every test, every denial, every setback, each one is disciplining your character. Each one is etching wisdom into you. You can't see it yet, but years from now you'll glance back and recognize that what shattered you was really constructing you. The pain wasn't arbitrary. It was the teacher. And you, the pupil, were being reformed into something tougher, purer, more liberated. When you endure adversity with insight, something within you changes. You start to believe in the procedure rather than dread it. You realize that strength isn't located in control. It is located in surrender. Not the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of releasing the illusion that you ever had any right to be untouched. Life was never designed to be simple. It was designed to be meaningful, and meaning is tested by fire. That is the first lesson of purification. Do not flee pain. Walk directly into it. Let it burn away the false. Let it strip you of everything that is temporary. Let it teach you that the only thing you ever really possess is your character. Your capacity to stay calm, brave, and kind when the world hands you every reason to do otherwise. Because, in that moment, you don't merely endure struggle. You rise above it. You become the very thing it was trying to create. Hardship, when it is resisted, compounds agony. But hardship, when embraced with knowing, turns to strength. The Stoics did not merely speak of endurance. They lived it, they conditioned it. In their eyes, the mind was a muscle, and pain was the gym. They were aware that the soul could not stay clean if there was no struggle. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, was entwined with betrayal, war, and death. But he wrote every night in his own private diary, not to grumble, but to purge. Those pages, which eventually became his meditations, were not address to the world notes. They were his proving grounds, his therapy sessions, his cleansing rite. He would tell himself that nothing outside of himself could injure him, that each blow, each loss, each defeat was simply another drill for his reason. Think of being the ruler of the greatest empire in the world, and still having the self-control to examine your anger, your pride, your fear. Marcus didn't flee from suffering, he remained with it until it taught him his lesson. That is the Stoic way. Adversity won't transform you unless you welcome it with awareness. People mostly navigate pain in the dark, hoping it passes soon. But the Stoic meets it with open eyes and steady heart, saying, "What can I gain from this fire?" Because that is what pain is. Fire, it destroys illusions. It incinerates false beliefs. It reveals what was always vulnerable within you. And yet it leaves something unbreakable, Seneca once wrote. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. What he is saying is that each challenge you come up against has the ability to hone your inner steel. But here is the catch. You must allow it. The untamed soul fights back. The untamed soul whines. The untamed soul cries for fairness. But the trained Stoic understands that life isn't fair or comfortable. It is about growth. He doesn't ask, "Why me?" he says. "Let's see what I'm made of." That shift is the purification. It's the moment when pain stops being punishment and starts being preparation. Epictetus knew this better than anyone. Born a slave, beaten by his master, crippled for life. And yet, he became one of the greatest teachers of freedom, because he realized that true freedom isn't external, it's internal. "You can shackles my leg," he replied, "but my mind, not even Zeus can overwhelm." That is purification through adversity. It is not avoiding pain. It is becoming untouchable in it. Picture that level of resilience, to have your body bound and still be free, to have your world crumbling and still be at peace. That is not superhuman. That is trained humanity. That is the Stoic way. You and I are not slaves to Rome, but we are slaves otherwise, to emotion, to opinion, to comfort, to the bottomless appetite for control. Every time you hold on to what you can't hold on to, you sacrifice your peace. Every time you flee from discomfort, you postpone your purification. Life will not cease to test you just because you request it politely. It will shatter your plans, lower your pride, steal from you what you believed you could not do without. And when it does, you'll have a choice, to crumble in bitterness or to remain in acceptance. The initial reaction compounds suffering. The second melts it away. Marcus said, "Love only what happens, what was destined." No greater harmony. This is amor fati. Love of fate. Not resignation, but profound acceptance. To love your destiny is to stop wishing the storm away and learn instead to dance in the rain. It is to look at the loss, the failure, the hurt, and to whisper, "This too is mine. This too belongs." The modern mind calls that madness, but the Stoic calls it freedom. Because when you cease to struggle against reality, reality ceases to oppress you. We've constructed a universe fixated on keeping difficulties at bay. Instant gratification, limitless entertainment. Around-the-clock distraction, anything to prevent quiet, inconveniences, or effort. And what has that brought us? A generation of delicate spirits, easily wounded, easily shattered, easily misplaced. The Stoics would recognize this as a danger sign. When you eliminate pain, you eliminate strength. When you eliminate struggle, you eliminate strength. The soul grows mellow, untested, unprepared. That's why voluntary hardship was central to their training. Sleep on the floor, fast for a day, embrace the cold, not for punishment, but for preparation. The Stoic wanted to be stronger than circumstance. He wanted to know that if life took everything, his peace would remain untouched. Think of the human spirit like a piece of iron. Leave it unworked, and it rusts. Hammer it in fire, and it glows. That is what adversity does. It makes you shine. But only if you allow it. The untrained flee the blaze. The Stoic strides through it, and with each step, he is brighter, tougher, more vital. He doesn't hope for easier times. He prepares for tougher mindsets. He understands that suffering is a given, but pain is not. The fire will come regardless. So he prefers to go into it voluntarily, not have it engulf him unexpectedly. Contemporary comfort is tempting. It assures you life needs to be smooth, that you must always feel good. That difficulty is a sign of something being wrong. But the Stoics knew a tougher truth. A smooth sea never bred an accomplished sailor. You can't develop resilience without resistance. You can't develop patience without delay. You can't develop courage without fear. You can't cleanse your soul without struggle. The Stoics didn't pursue pain for the sake of pain. They pursued truth. And truth isn't usually found in comfort. It is found in moments that push you, moments that strip away illusion, moments that leave you bare in the face of reality. Seneca wrote once to Lucilius, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." That is the essence of purification. You are not being tested because the universe desires you to suffer. You are being tested because the universe desires you to see what is real, what is strong, what is permanent. Hardship brings out the contrast between the pretend self and the suffering self, between the mask and the real, between what the world offered you and what can never be lost. When you begin living this way, things shift. You no longer demand that life is fair. You no longer insist that people treat you fairly. You stop struggling with things you cannot control, and in its place, you construct your strength internally. You find release. You find endurance. You find faith that no agony is in vain, that every test is a page in your becoming. The fire does not come to destroy you. It comes to purify you. And when it is finished with you, you will not be who you once were. You will be who you were always supposed to be. So the next time hardship finds you, don't hide. Don't curse it. Don't call it unfair. Sit with it. Watch it. Let it work on you. Ask yourself, what part of me is being burned away right now? Is it pride? Fear? Ego? Control? Whatever it is, let it burn. Undefined because beneath all that noise lies the quiet strength of your purified soul. And once you discover that, nothing in this world can break you again. Real purification starts not in big trials, but in the tiniest moments, the ones that no one notices. When the Stoics discussed dominating themselves, they were not talking about flashiness. They were talking about the rigor of the ordinary. How you get up, how you think, how you react when life won't cooperate. They held that the soul is formed not by luck, but by decision. The small habitual decisions that make you what you are, and adversity, in its unobtrusive fashion, is the mirror that shows those decisions. Marcus Aurelius was confronted with sheer pandemonium, wars on the border, treachery within his administration, death within his own household. And yet he practiced every day to come back to peace. Every morning, he reminded himself, "You will meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful people today." He didn't do this to grow cynical. He did it to remain prepared, to anchor his peace before the storm began. That is purification, not reacting from impulse, but from clarity, not letting external events dictate your inner state. Every insult, every delay, every injustice became for him a moment to practice virtue. You notice that the Stoics did not compartmentalize philosophy into a separate existence from life. Philosophy to them was training, for the mind just as the gym is training for the body. Hard times were not an interlude to life. They were life, and purification was the act of encountering life precisely as it is, without resistance, without bitterness, without losing the capacity to act with reason, Seneca wrote. No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity. What he was saying was this: ease leads you to believe that you are secure. Difficulty makes you recall that safety is an illusion. That reminder, though painful, purifies your attachment to what can be lost. When the Stoics employed silence, it was not passivity, it was mastery. They knew that words are powerful. They can cure or kill, build up or disperse. A person who cannot remain quiet is a person not yet cleansed, because quietness displays the reality of your mind. When you cease speaking, you begin observing how agitated, how afraid, how reactive you actually are. That unease is the first step towards purification. The weak seek distraction. The powerful sit in the quiet. They allow it to reveal to them who they are. Epictetus would say to his pupils, "When you are offended, remember that it is your judgment that offends you." Ponder on that. The world doesn't really insult you. Humans act, things occur. It is your interpretation that hurts you. This is where cleansing begins. Not by making the world different, but by making your way of seeing it different. You cease to take everything personally. You cease to require everyone's agreement. You cease to expect life to conform to your ease, and instead, you conform yourself to the truth. In contemporary society, individuals equate freedom with hedonism. They believe freedom is about doing whatever they want. But the Stoics instructed otherwise. True freedom is self-mastery. It is doing what you should do even when emotion yells you shouldn't. That is why we need adversity. It provides us the opportunity to exercise restraint, to be angry and not strike out, to be afraid and yet go on, to hurt and yet be gentle. That is the highest purification, to stay good in a world that is not. Most people wait for perfect conditions before they act. They say, "I'll be calm when things settle down." But things never settle down. Life is constant motion. The Stoic trains in motion, calm in chaos, discipline in noise, patience in delay. Purification means carrying peace into the storm, not waiting for the storm to pass. The person who learns that not only gets through adversity, he emerges beyond it. He becomes the center of the storm, quiet, centered, unbreakable. You can observe this in your own life. Consider the last time you encountered something you believed you couldn't get through. A loss, a betrayal, an unexpected shift. Initially, it seemed too much to bear. But days went by and you adjusted. You found strength you didn't know you had. That was purification. You shed layers of dependence, pride, expectation, and beneath it, found a quieter, stronger self. Pain forced you to grow up, to see what mattered, to let go of what didn't. The Stoics wanted to live in that awareness all the time, not just when forced by crisis. That is why they endured hardship voluntarily, to remain prepared, to remain undefiled. Seneca once characterized the soul of a wise man as a polished mirror, reflecting nothing false. Hardship smooths that mirror. Every disappointment, every frustration strips away a layer of grime. The lies you tell yourself, the tales you keep hidden, the smoothing stings. It scrapes, it burns. But when the hurt passes, you reflect yourself clearly. You see how little you really need to be content. You see that happiness isn't out there. It is out there in your reaction to the world. That is purification. This isn't a glamorous process, though. It is not noisy or showy. It occurs in quiet, in isolation, in the late nights when you struggle with your own mind. That is where purification really happens. Not when you win the world, but when you win yourself, Marcus Aurelius said. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The second you really get that, you are no longer a victim of life. You are its student. You no longer ask for the road to be smooth and begin to ask to be strong. The Stoics weren't attempting to flee emotion.